Hey everyone, Dave Holtzman, President of Search Solution Group. We are here today at the Mint Museum in Uptown Charlotte. We're going to sit down with Gary Blankemeyer, CFO of the Mint Museum. Search Solution Group worked with Gary to place him here at the Mint over 9 years ago. So we're going to catch up with him, see what he's been up to the last 9 years, and get some nuggets of wisdom. All right, well, thank you for joining us today. Let's start off by who are you and what is your role here at the Mint Museum?
Thank you, Dave. Gary Blankemeyer. My role is Chief Operating and Financial Officer at the Mint.
Excellent. And for those of us that maybe aren't familiar, what is the Mint Museum?
We are the oldest, not largest, but oldest art museum in the state of North Carolina. We're 88 years old this year. Primarily started with, well, the name the Mint comes from, we were the first, our building was the first U.S. Mint outside of Philadelphia. And that building is our Randolph building. And that goes back, like I said, 88 years. This building is about 13 years old, the Uptown. And so we have two locations, 35,000 pieces of art in our collection. We have permanent galleries at both locations that are just for our art, and then we have what we call rotating galleries, which displays either something we might curate or that might be a traveling exhibition from somewhere else. But our art is very diverse. European art is quite well known as the heritage of so much art, but then we also have early American, and then we have craft and design. So we have very much a breadth of art and diversifying very actively these days.
Excellent. So thanks, Gary. How did you come to work for the Mint Museum, and how was Search Solution Group involved in that process?
Search Solution Group was very much involved. Your recruiter reached out to me. I was kind of looking around because I felt it was time to make a move. And she reached out, introduced me, brought the, she told me the name and I was very interested, but Mint has a great name recognition and reputation in Charlotte. And even though I'm not an art person, I was intrigued. And so she made the introductions, and the rest was me. I got the job. I always, when I interviewed in the past, I took it personal that I was going to get the job. And I did a lot of homework, a lot of research, and I wanted the offer. Then it was on me. Do I like it or don't I? And I spent as much time as I could. And here with the CEO, I wanted to make sure it was going to be the right chemistry and the right fit. And it was. I really enjoyed her. But then she left, and actually, I enjoyed Todd even more.
Excellent. This is a little off script, but just since we talked about it, so your background for years was in manufacturing, but now you've come to the nonprofit world. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I still deep down I'm a manufacturing guy. I think I got that from my father. My father was an industrial engineer that had progressed in his career, and I really he worked hard, and we moved a lot. And I actually, middle of 5 kids, to spend time with him, I went to work with him. And I got to observe what I still think was a really, really good leader. And so with that, even though I went into accounting, really I chose accounting over like finance because I liked industrial better than banking. So I started in the automotive industry, again, just because I had such interest in manufacturing, seeing parts made and sold and the industries that they served. So most of my career was there, and I was with a company called Bosch Rexroth, a subsidiary of Bosch, a big multi-billion German company. And I did a lot of different things, finance and general management, and about 2005, they broke up a division I was heading and split it up and reorganized. And for a lot of reasons, I had a great career, great run, but at that point they said, and I was based in Charlotte, and I was traveling a lot, and they wanted me to move to Chicago, and I thought my future was kind of ill-defined because I had turned down going to China a few years prior. And when you turn down a major international company, they really don't see you as a player, and that's okay. I always make decisions with my eyes wide open. And so I said, I'll find something else to do in Charlotte. And I love Charlotte. I've been here since 1986, and it's grown, in my opinion, nicely, good quality of life. And now 2 of my 3 children have come back, and they have families here. Great, we're in a great place. But I did some work on my own after leaving Bosch Rexroth. Not a good time, 2008, 9, 10, bad economy. And so a friend mentioned to me Child Care Resources was looking for a CFO. Would I look at it? And so I did, and I got the position. And I did what I needed to do, which was help them a little bit of restructure, actually make a physical move because the lease was up, and we saved about 40% on our lease when we moved literally across the street. But then I got approached about the Mint, and here I am. And I always said I'm not really a nonprofit guy. I'm too much of a capitalist. But even here, I take it personal that we're not going to lose money. That's of no benefit. It's actually very negative. But you don't, as a nonprofit, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good to make a lot of money either. Donors expect that you're going to use their money for good purpose. So it's a balancing act, but it's good. And especially at this stage of my career, it's a good place to be.
Excellent, appreciate that. So Gary, what are some of your and your team's most significant accomplishments in the 9+ years that you've been here at the Mint Museum?
As we mentioned, I'm COO and CFO. I came as CFO because the Mint had some significant financial reporting problems. And in 2015, I'm the first CFO of the Mint Museum. So the first thing we had to do was fix the financials. And my whole career, it's always been about people, finding the right people. And I may have been educated as an accountant, but I held very few pure accounting jobs. I really started my career as a financial analyst in manufacturing and controller and so on. So I had to find a good technician, accounting technician. And I did. I found a guy that was doing some work in nonprofit world. He was a veteran in many ways. He was a Navy veteran, but also a veteran in nonprofit world. And Steve Young, and he was late in his career. He actually worked more like part-time, 32 hours a week. But in a matter of a quarter, he had all the financial issues fixed. I think they just didn't realize how low-hanging fruit there was. And getting the right people is always the best thing that can happen. And Steve was so instrumental in turning things around. So we turned that around very quickly. I had never heard of what they call a management letter in an audit. And that just means you got problems. We've never had one since. That's due to Steve. Steve retired 3 years ago at 72 years old. And in a lot of ways, I still miss him. But I have a super replacement that now we're working on progressive, moving things more electronic, more intellectual on how we do things. So accounting is solid and moving digital. On the other side, when I became COO, there was a COO when I came, and she left and went somewhere else in the arts community. And they asked me, that was in between CEOs, and they asked me if I would, or no, I volunteered. I said, I'll take it. I've got CFO organization fixed, and I can do this, and I'd be happy to. And so they, the temporary or interim CEO said, absolutely, and he took it to the board, and they said they were fine. Within a month, they came back, and they said, we want you to have it, the combined role. So with that, I picked up HR, events, facilities, and the stores. And so since that time, or since I started, we've grown from a $9 million organization to, we hit 15.5 in fiscal 23 with the Picasso exhibition. But now in 24 and what's expected in 25, we're settling down at 13 million. So we grew 44%, and now we're settling in more like a 30% growth. But even more along my team, our events team has grown that revenue 80%, and the store has doubled. So again, it's the right people. Those people, all 5 of my direct reports are experts in what they do.
Pretty impressive numbers, right, from those accomplishments over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I encourage anybody to spend more time with getting the right people. They make my job easier. They are producing for the Mint Museum, and so I always try to spend a little extra time on looking at who I'm putting in the right places. It's so beneficial in the long run.
So with your background in, of course, nonprofit, but also manufacturing, how important do you feel working with a recruiting firm can be in finding the right people?
Well, especially in the nonprofit world, money always is tight. So working with recruiters is kind of a mixed bag. But I do, in both worlds, I think, if you put out a job today, you're going to get hundreds of resumes. So a recruiter can help you find the right people, narrow the field, do a lot of the research. It's tremendous productivity improvement, and help you find the right person, not only quicker, but just a better qualified candidate.
Excellent. What would you say, Gary, is on the horizon here at the Mint Museum?
We, after coming out of COVID, which we did very well, but there was a lot of, like everybody else, a lot of government funds. But coming out of that, we came out really kind of stronger than we had been. But we kept everybody employed during COVID, but we lost a lot of people. And historically, we had fairly high turnover. So coming out of COVID, we had fairly high turnover, and historically we did. But we did an analysis of all of our jobs, and we made some significant salary adjustments to be more competitive. Historically, nonprofits, are known not to pay well. We wanted to really re-engage our staff and spend time to make sure that we're competitive. So we did that, and it added a significant amount to compensation's our biggest cost, and it added a significant amount of that. So, but with that and the growth we've had, we've got to continue to grow a bit to make sure that we're covering the enhancements we're making to exhibitions. Picasso was the best thing we had in 25 years. And so we're trying to say, okay, what's after that? We're not going to have another Picasso in the next few years, but we want to have a bigger draw and better named exhibitions, and that costs money. So the issue is how we're going to raise money. And we just got through approving a budget with our board, and the focus is how do we generate additional revenue.
Excellent. So you mentioned earlier, and very impressive, that you moved into the dual role of COO and CFO. So what would be your number one management tip for a COO and your number one financial tip for a CFO?
I think, again, they're both C level. I don't see a whole lot of difference. And again, as I've said before, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but to me, it's all getting the right people. You're kind of like an orchestra leader to a certain extent, is that you want to get the right people, you want to spend time and really listen to them. You should continually learn from those folks because they're the experts. Especially COO, you're going to have more diversity in what you're managing. CFO, for the most part, some you might have IT and you might have HR, but either way, it comes down to really listening, getting the right people in the right places and listening to them, and then you become a resource to them. The other part is the boss. I think anybody can relate to your boss is everything in your day-to-day job life, and if you're looking for a change, make sure you spend a lot of time with that boss to fully understand what your role is going to be and how you're going to operate. And I spent a lot of extra time with Kathleen before I came, and then Todd inherited me. I inherited him to a certain extent, but he's just fantastic, and I can talk to him about everything and anything. I still don't get art. But he can explain it to me. He's a doctor of arts, but he also gets the business side, and that's huge for me. For a lot of time, my first few years, people used to say, well, you're just not a museum person. And that's why I'm here, because there aren't any other business people. But he understands that, and I've got a great relationship, and I truly feel like a partner to him.
That's great to have a good relationship.
Absolutely.
So as a final takeaway, Gary, for our listeners, what is one piece of advice that you would give to any company looking to improve their financial health?
Wow, that's big, and that could be varied. I think my baseline, where I started, was really in analytics. And I think every business has their analytics. Figure out what those are. What are your key indicators, and develop those, keep them in front of you, and address them. And then also, again, a broken record, the right people in the right places. I'm only as good as the staff I have.